that I'm also trying to play Spotify while I'm doing this. And I feel like that might take up more bandwidth than I think it does. But
right.
I don't know. It's weird now. It's to the point to where I have Spotify going pretty much every time we do it, and it's to not have it playing now in the background is just odd. I don't know. The silence is deafening. But here we are, episode number 2 of ArachNerds. It's on the Herpeticulture Network and is brought to you by Fulvius Apparel, shirts, hats, coffee mugs, bookmarks. Beanie season is coming in quick, and hoodies
My fellow
still
bald
too.
people,
So.
we definitely need some beanies.
That's right. You lose all the heat leaves from your head.
Yeah. I would say I'm not bald, but I got a forehead going on here. That's why I always wear a hat.
If you use the code THN at checkout, you get 15% off your order. That is the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you. If you buy shirts and stuff, you're helping fund my habit of cigars and spiders and scorpions. And my wife's not around now, so I can say that kind of stuff. So, last episode, when we were done, he's like, dude, I could send you some stuff. And my wife was sitting right here, and I was just kind of staring at the camera like, it was like a blink twice if you're being held against your will kind of thing. So I was like, I don't know. And then I texted him. I was like, I couldn't answer you because I had ears. So, yeah, we're here. Glad we're back. Episode 2. We are joined this week. This is our inaugural guest, actually, and it is Dylan Tinney of 8 Deadly Sins, LLC.
LLC.
Get into all kinds of cool stuff that he's currently working with. I don't really have any updates. There's nothing really new going on as far as my very small gang, unless a corn snake clutch that I'm waiting to hatch counts, which I feel like it's been taking forever. So no news other than that. So what's going on with you, Niserd?
I almost pulled the trigger on some Papamedia slings. I realized I need to set up my snake room a little bit more before I get any more, before I add in any new additions. So, speaking of, I'm actually getting 3 new snakes next week. Another scrub, a blood python I'm picking up from some this weekend, and then a high percentage locality reticulated python. I just absolutely missed having them. So yeah, then after that, I'm hoping to get some racks in and some caging in so I could situate my room, because most of my animals are in my room right now. At least my pythons, my bows are out here in my living room. And then I hope to also put in like some shelving and get some nice enclosures going for some tarantulas. So hopefully soon.
Nice.
I've been tempted by the smaller retic thing before as well, and I just every time I'm like, it's just dumb. I'm not going to do it. I don't, even for the small stuff, I just don't have the space to devote to it.
Yeah, so, definitely.
It's hard though, because man, those things, even like the natural forms, like a good old fashioned, like just as nature intended retic to me beats out pretty much all morphs to me. I don't know. Something about seeing them in person, man. Just they're really, really stunning animals.
Yeah, same. I know back in the day, what was it, like in like 2010 on King Snake Classified, how when a lot of locality retics came in, especially from like the islands and everything, and just how cheap they were, and nobody was paying any attention to them. So, and now it's like they cost like an arm and leg to even get one, or a high percentage one. So interesting how that works.
Yeah, kind of came in quick and then disappeared as fast as it arrived. So, but we are here for spiders. Let's jump right into it. Sort of, what's your history with inverts, Dylan, and what was the first invert or tarantula and even scorpion that you got into, and then how did it all morph into 8 Deadly Sins?
So since I was a kid, I was always just fascinated by what other people would consider, creepy crawlies. Um, always picking them up, carrying them around. My mom was always like, "You're gonna get bit one day," and I'm like, "Whatever." I guess that's the risk that you have to take with, liking this kind of stuff. Um, and I've always just had a, fascination with, just the inverts and stuff without backbones. I do like reptiles, but the just something about like spiders and scorpions and centipedes, um, things like that. Even like true spiders that I work with now, like I got wandering spiders and stuff. It's just different than let's say like snakes and stuff. I respect all hobbies, so but it's just that's the one for me. Um, and then I'd say about 6 years ago, I kind of took it seriously. After doing research all these years, I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm going to do something about it before time runs out and then I don't ever get the chance to, do anything. So about 6 years ago, I picked up my first tarantula. It was the Grammostola pulchra, the Brazilian black. He was, maybe about this big. I bought him from the local reptile shop, and my wife was like, "Sure, yeah, you can have, just one tarantula." And I was like, "Okay." And then it kind of escalated because you find, you start looking at pictures and reading stuff, and then it just escalates from there. And then I got into like, I bought my first scorpion, Asian forest scorpion, just a beginner. I've had her for 4 years, 5 years. And I mean, I still have her, so she must have been young when I got her. She's currently gravid as well, so she's looking like a little blimp. But and it just escalated from there. And then as I got more comfortable with the inverts, I started doing more like old worlds. I like the Ornithoctoninae. Anything of the Asian arboreals and fossorials, those are my forte. Um, I love anything that has stripes on the butt. I do like baboons and stuff like that, but there's nothing that beats like Firmingocylus and Cereopagopus and Haplopelma, stuff like that. Those are the species I currently work the most with.
Yeah, there's just something about the build of the earth tigers and Cereopagopus and things like that that are just, I don't know. There's something about them that it's just, you just know it's a solid spider.
Mm-hmm. It is. I actually produced Omothymus langkowi recently. It was crazy. I paired her up. It was almost like a Poecilotheria. She wedged up and it was like real quick, and then the male ran off, and I was like, well, that was kind of weird because usually, like, I've produced, Von Worthy and stuff like that, and they hang on for a second and then they leave, even like Bach Ma and stuff. But something about the Omothymus langkowi was and then the male was out of there. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I was like, I'll try again. He didn't want anything to do with her. She ended up dropping an egg sac a month after the pairing. And I was like, well, that's crazy. That's the fastest egg sac I've ever had. I don't know how good it's going to be. I left it in there for 30 days. I pulled it. It was full of eggs with legs. So I was like, dang.
Wow.
They produce pretty good.
It's like a weird game of tag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I know when I paired pokies, like I have a Vitata female right here, and her first egg sac was, I mean, the pairing is just so fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy how quick it goes.
Are you normally one of the when pairing tarantulas up? Are you normally just let the male do its thing and you don't interfere? Whatever happens, or are you like usually standing there with like a paintbrush and some forceps or something like that?
So I always have I have my tongs and then I put a straw over it, so that way if they bite it, at least it's soft. And I always have that ready for them, but usually 9 times out of 10, if the female eats well, you feed her like some big meals beforehand, she'll leave the male alone. I've had some pretty mean species like my Thai gold fringe recently, things like that, OBTs. I mean, as long as they have that great big abdomen going on, they'll leave the male alone for the most part.
Yeah, I've definitely seen, or I've read reports on terrestrial and fossorial species being more prone to kind of
Hmm.
catching the males, opposed to also like arboreal species.
Hmm.
Have you found that generally that the case? Like they tend to be a bit more aggressive? Because I know with Chilobrachys, I've heard that's pretty prominent in some Hepathelma species.
Yeah. So, Kilobrachys, I have a Cancrochon female right now that's actually paired. The male went 3 times with her, and lived through the pairing. Her first boyfriend, though, a couple molts ago, she ate him, and then she ended up dropping a sack, and none of the eggs were fertilized. So it was kind of a
Dang.
big waste of time. But you kind of take the good with the bad when it comes to breeding. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens. I'm hoping for some better results now. My female, she's like 7+ inches. She's huge. And the male is like, as big as, well, here he is here. I mean, I don't know if you could see him, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's tiny compared to her. But I mean, he put the moves on her pretty well. Danced around in there for a little while and then paired her up, and she didn't even bother him. Didn't chase after him or nothing. I was like, that's crazy. It's the first time that ever happened with her. Because, as you said, Kilobrachys are known to be man eaters. I mean, that's just a trait that they have.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've gathered from watching Dave's Beasties on YouTube and stuff. Is some like there's certain sort of maybe species, but also more broadly like certain genre that seem to be more prone to it than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. I've
Now,
never
I
read
did,
Mitchell, so I couldn't say.
right. I did try to pair, just yesterday, I tried to pair Haplochlastis devamatha, the LSD earth tiger. And he went down to her burrow and started doing his thing. And all of a sudden, I heard all this commotion, and he ate him. Um,
Dang.
so I don't know if he even got an insertion. I guess we'll find out because everything happened down in the burrow. Like they wouldn't usually like when he starts tapping at the entrance. She'll come out, and then
Right.
they'll meet on top, and you can watch the whole thing. Everything happened like down in the burrow, so I don't even know. What happened.
Yeah,
Ended
that's
up.
what would make me nervous. Especially it's like, oh,
Yeah.
especially if they didn't make their burrow right at the right at the edge, so it could kind of peer in. Because I always have a habit of creating like a starter burrow. So the off
Mhm.
chance I did decide to breed them, I at least would be able to see like was an egg sac created or not, or something like that. Because that would just, I don't know, having an egg sac hatch in a fossorial enclosure would really kind of, it would drive me up a wall.
Yeah, it would be a disaster because you'd have to dig through. You'd have to catch the female out of there first, and then just very carefully kind of dig through the substrate, try not to crush anybody. It's kind of a disaster. I haven't had to do it yet, but I've seen it happen to other breeders. And I'm like, oh, that's you know.
What's the timeline like in terms of like when you are feeding a female up before pairing? Sort of how often are you feeding her, and then how do you sort of gauge when she's ready for getting paired?
So after her molt, I'll give her a week, 7 to 10 days or so, and then I'll introduce her like my Kilobrachys, for example. I'll use her as an example because that whole pairing just went great. I'm hoping for a healthy sack from that one. So when she molted, it was like 10 days afterwards. I gave her like two good sized roaches, like big ones. I waited 5 days after that, and I gave her two more good sized roaches, and then that's when I found that male, and I was like, okay. And I looked at her, and she had a great big abdomen. It was nice and full. She looked super healthy. I know Kilobrachys, like they have that long abdomen. If you can get that to come out, that's usually a good sign that they're nice and fed. Other spiders are different because they have like the round abdomen, the way they are.
Right.
But Kilobrachys are like a dead sign. Like if they're long, same thing with Hapacosmia. Like the Himalayanas, they have like that long abdomen. But with her, after I fed her a lot, she started plumping out. she looked a little bit thicker, and so I brought the male in, and then the guy was like, "Hey, the male's on his way." That was 4 days after I gave her the last 2 roaches, and I just tossed another couple roaches in there, just to make double sure she ate them. The next day, I introduced that male when he came in, and they kind of hit it off right away. She didn't show any signs of aggression. I didn't have to separate them at all. She just kind of, hung out. So I mean, there is a timeline when you can pair females. So usually I don't pair anything after 6 months. After 6 months after a molt, I don't even bother because there's a chance they might molt out.
Okay.
Did you introduce for the species that you've bred so far? Like, have you introduced any kind of like stimuli, like a flooding, kind of like recreating any kind of flooding, dry season, any sort of things?
Yeah, so Asian species, they like it a little bit more damp. So like before you do the pairing, you just flood the enclosure. Make sure you see the water like running down the enclosure. Spray it down, give her water in her water dish and stuff, and she'll start actually like webbing. Like right now, mine has like a half pipe of web going across her enclosure. She'll start actually webbing an area to where she feels comfortable in. And when the male comes in, I'll put him on the opposite side of the enclosure, and then just let him find his way into her like area that she built. But you want to give them a good flood before they pair. Same thing with the Langkawi. I always gave her a good flood. Same thing with the Aurea tibialis. I have to read up on Rosea because they're. I just paired them today. I don't know if you guys seen the video, but their breeding season is September to March. So I'm gonna have to figure out like if they get a lot of rainfall at that point, or just leave it like dry like a Faunopelma until. I know Faunopelma, they like it dry and cold for a few months, and then you gradually like warm them up, and then you flood them out, and then they drop you an egg sac.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do any shark tanking at all? I know some people are like big proponents of that, but
no, I don't. I never had any luck with shark tanking. I also never had any luck with cohabbing. I tried that once with my Poecilotheria regalis that I had, and she ended up eating the male and molting out. So I was like, "That's cool." Complete waste of time, complete waste of male.
What do you mean when you guys say shark tanking?
So it'll be like a deli cup. You take the male and you put them inside a deli cup. Something like this, or smaller. And then you put them in the enclosure, like next to the female, and then they start reacting. Like the female come up, and the male, and then at that point you open up the lid and let the male out. But I don't have the patience for that, so it takes a long time for that. And I get it, like it's safer, but it doesn't always work either. I've tried it, and it just doesn't work for me. Yeah.
So what's the main focus, be it species or a particular genus? I know you mentioned Asia being a big interest, but is there anything within that you're sort of more focused on and sort of looking to do more with than others?
I've been working on Ho Chi Minh. I actually have a female and two mature males. I've been working on trying to get those paired up because I feel like they need to be more available in the hobby. They're just one of those underrated spiders. They don't get very big, like 4.5 inches as adults, but they're gorgeous. Just the gold coloring with the abdomen pattern and stuff like that. It's just they're a stunning spider. But I've been trying to work with those. I have a female Cithrognathus tongmainensis, which is the Ornithoctoninae vendula female that I'm raising up, which is bad because I know a guy right now that has 3 mature males, and my female's not even ready. So I'm like, it's just bad timing, but eventually I want to work with those. Just the obsolete species. I also have Harpactira chrysogaster. Female. I've been putting feelers out for some males, even at like small males. Like I just need something, some kind of like foundation to work with.
Mhm.
But I just know another guy. He has another female, and I'm like, well, I mean, that's not going to do me any good. As far as chrysogaster, I don't know if they're man eaters, and it's like pair once and the male gets eaten. But I would love to eventually produce those as well because their colors are similar to the OBTs, like they're blue, green, and orange, but they're a baboon species, which is super cool.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like a Faunapelma moriae,
Yeah.
Diamantinensis, like they all have like that same color scheme, but they're different species. It's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Did you see that new species of Faunapelma that's similar to Morier, but it's found in a completely different area? It looks pretty similar to it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I seen that. I also know my buddy Nate over at Micro Wilderness. He's been working with a Faunapelma moriae, so that's been pretty cool. I wish I had that kind of a Faunapelma sitting around, but all I have is a Moderatum and then I have a Gabelli.
Oh, nice.
So still cool, but not moriae cool.
So you mentioned before about your scorpions and your true spiders. Do those sort of align with your tarantulas? Basically, like where they came from, like Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia. Is that where you're generally interested in when it comes to the true spiders and scorpions?
Yep. So right now, my scorpions, I love all the centroides, any of the bark scorpions.
I am right there.
I like how the square shape of them is just crazy. I have centroides nigromanus, and then I have bicolor. I have a sculpturatus, and then I have a few others. But then I have a pair of Parabuthus transvalicus that I'm raising up. So those are going to be pretty cool eventually. They're only this big right now, but it's a male and female pair. And then I have, what else do I have? Just the Asian forest scorpion. As far as true spiders, most of my true spiders come from the old world countries. I have the Cameroon crab spider, which is the Barolessus occidentalis.
I saw that on your profile. Pretty bad.
Yeah, she's gorgeous. And then I have the Halconia murriensis, the Australian banded huntsman. I bought a small female, so hopefully by the time she's raised up, I can find a male to pair her up with. They get pretty big as adults, like 7 to 8 inches from what I heard.
Damn.
So yeah, they're big huntsmen, and they like it dry, so it's super easy to keep out here in Colorado. It's dry out here. It's awful.
Are you somewhere in Colorado, like higher elevation, lower elevation?
We're sitting. Are we higher than Denver?
I thought the whole state was a higher elevation.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much below sea level, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, we're not bigger than.
Yeah, we're about like
We're at 46.
4,600 feet.
Okay.
So I mean, it's higher elevation. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I get it being basically sea level. So, but I moved out of there because all the snow, and I can't do it anymore. It drove me insane.
But the reason why I brought the sea level or just the elevation thing was when it comes to like higher like montane species. I know some people have more success with the montane species like Mesomelas, which is the blanking on the common name with those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering if you if you ever worked with any of those or just the new species that are coming in.
Not. I haven't worked with those yet, but I've thought about it. But the only thing about those is you got to keep them kind of cool. They like it pretty cold, about 65 degrees usually. Same thing with like the Peru tarantulas. I know they like cooler weather. They've just become adapted to it, so that's just what they like. I heard a lot of people with um, like the Mysomius, you know, they kind of get uncomfortable when it gets around 75, 80 degrees, which is not uncommon where I live because it's out in the desert. You know, sometimes in my bedroom it sits like 82, 84 degrees sometimes in the summer because it's like 110 outside. Um, you know, and I have air conditioner, but it doesn't, it you know, it can only do so much, you know. That's kind of why I strayed away from those species because of the special care. I did also have a chance to work with like velvet worms, and those also you got to keep them basically in a refrigerator or a wine cooler. So it's you know it's one of those things like kind of not for me. Like they're very cool animals, and you know for those who have the patience and the setups for those, I mean go for it. But not around here.
Ooh, can y'all hear me? I've got to trying to get pink people going.
Yeah, I can hear you. So with your more mature female, or with your in your females enclosures, do you tend to put in any sort of like cleanup crew or anything like that, kind of to kind of help with enclosure maintenance at all?
um, Not so much like put in, but I noticed Jungle Mix, Zilla Jungle Mix substrate has springtail eggs. So you know when you use Jungle Mix and you keep it damp like that, you'll get springtails. You'll see them in the water dish and everything, which is kind of cool. So it's like a built-in cleanup crew that we don't have to deal with, you know, isopods and stuff. But I've thought about doing isopods. I think they're pretty cool. Like there are some cool ones out there. But as far as like live plants and stuff, I can't keep plants alive to save my life. So I just fake plants for me until I do the 101 on live plants. I have no luck with them. But I would love to do like a bioactive like arboreal setup with you know maybe some kind of omothymus, maybe like you know my velocipedes when she gets bigger. Right now she's you know 5 inches or so. But I was thinking maybe when I put her in like a 12 by 12 by 18 or something, maybe build her like a drainage layer and put some live plants and cork round and stuff like that. Make it look like Singapore, you know. Um, but it's you know I don't know. I just suck at keeping live plants alive. So you would think I'd be good at it because my grandfather he had a green thumb. He was always planting stuff, planting trees, plants, flowers, all kinds of stuff. So you think I would, you know, it'd pass down the genes, but not that part. I didn't get that part.
I've definitely with the species I kept in the past, I've definitely had no luck with keeping live plants or anything like that. I kept mainly Pamphobeteus, Theraphosus, and Estes, and they would tear everything up.
hmm Yeah, mine just happens like I tried it with. So when I got my Asian forest scorpion years ago, I was like, cool, I'm gonna do like a live plant setup, and I went to the store and I bought some pothos, and everybody was like, oh, pothos are bulletproof and all that, and I'm like, cool, you know, I'm gonna try it, and 2 weeks later, I had like brown, like slime. It got like slimy. And it was gross.
Oh.
It smelled bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, well, there's my live plants experience.
Yeah. So you had a handful of species that we sort of went through and wanted to sort of deep dive into a little bit, in no particular order. Me having kept Heterothele villicella years and years ago and really enjoyed them. I was telling you that you had some for sale on the site right now, and I had some sitting in my cart, and I was I was heavily close to pulling the trigger on those, but what's been your history with those? How are you currently keeping them, and how have they been as far as reproducing and all that?
So I have my Villicella here that I can show you. This is the female that's currently up for sale. The only reason why I'm selling her is because I just need the room. I'm starting to run out of shelves here. But I just keep her in this. They're just deep substrate. You can see she webbed the top all up.
Oh yeah.
That's about it. They don't really need much. They are a little bit moisture dependent, but not like, Asian species. They kind of come from like areas where it's like 50 to 60% humidity all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't really need to like wet it down or anything like that. It just needs to stay not dry.
Right.
But in a box like that, she's fully happy. I also have like some slings on the shelf back here. They're microscopic. I've been feeding them fruit flies. Been driving my wife nuts with these fruit flies.
Have you ever thought about? I know that some people have tried their hand at starting communals with them and such. Have you ever tried that with a couple of like the slings at all?
No, I don't. I just don't. I don't. For one, trust communals all the time. Even with Balfouri, I've seen cannibalism. And I just don't want to risk that. I know I'm probably overthinking it, and if they have their own area, they probably leave each other alone. But I just don't. I don't want to risk it and then lose a whole bunch of slings and maybe the adult female or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair.
and my wife also doesn't like communals. She's says there's too many legs. There's too much going on in one tank. So I respect that. I mean, if I could keep all these spiders and just not have a communal right now, I mean, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, when I get my own spider room, I'm gonna maybe look into building like a Balfouri communal. That'd be cool. And that way, she's not looking at it. It's somewhere else.
How many eggs are you getting from the sacks from those?
This one had like 40-ish. They're pretty small clutches.
Yeah.
But they're super tiny when they're babies.
The mature. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
The males from that species must mature pretty quickly, pretty quickly at that size.
Yeah, and that's like even the Ho Chi Minh that I've been working with, the males are like this big. I have two of them sitting over there, and they're so small. They're
like
just
matured out. They're that big.
Just mature males. Yep.
Wow.
They're so tiny. Compared to her, and I don't know if it serves a purpose, or I don't know why they develop like that over the millions of years. Evolution. I always try to look at it like that too. Like some species are like that because of evolution. The coloring, the size, the way they act, things like that. So I'm not sure what they benefit from being that small. I mean, I know they're not a very small species to begin with, but you would think the males and females would be at least close to the same size, but they're not.
Yeah. I don't think when it comes to that kind of stuff, I have a hard time believing a lot of it's just pure coincidence that it turned out that way. Like there had to be some sort of external factor that was involved in the the reason that that's the way it is. But yeah, I had 3 Villicella years ago, and they weren't slings, but they weren't adults either, and I just enjoyed them a ton, man. I had them in small jars and stuff at the time, and they webbed it up, and they were monsters with food. It was always
man,
just throw food in there, just watch them just go nuts, and
yeah,
they really are pretty spiders too. I mean,
they're great spiders. A few years ago, I would frown upon having dwarfs, and I would be like, man, But I tried. I had Villicella, I had Gabonensis, I had some Elegans, and honestly, they're cool. Like right now, I have two itty bitty Syracosmus Leetsies that I'm raising up. Um, they are for sale, but if nobody buys them, not a big deal. I'll just raise them up.
How did the Villicella compare to the Gabonensis?
I haven't worked with Gabonensis much. I kind of got that female in and then like sold her off right away just because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this.
Yeah.
After a while, dwarfs are cool, but the babies are just too small.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are all right, like whatever, they're fine. But man, these guys are just specks, and fruit flies drive me nuts. I'd like at least a half-inch sling. Being from second instar, at least a half-inch. I don't really work with many dwarfs other than like the Villicella.
Yeah.
Because those are cool.
What,
I hope to get my hands on some again at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
so I saw that. So we saw that you were working with Lyrognathus species like that. That's also another one that, like, back in the day, that was much more. I don't want to say much more common, but but I still feel like more people were working with them back in the day compared to now. What's been your experience with them?
So I had years ago. I had a sub-adult female, and I bought her from some guy on ArachNerds Classifieds, and I'm like, man, like these are super cool spiders. They're two-tone. They're stout leg. I mean, they have it all. The feeding response. Like I have some right now that are like 1.5 inches, hitting 2 inches, and they'll take like the big winged crickets, the ones that are like this big. They'll take it down. I mean, they don't fool around with food. So I mean, I don't know. I've heard from like people that were in the hobby before me that Lyrognathus were very popular back then. Same thing with like Epacupus and stuff like that. Um, and they used to go to stores and just buy just a female for $20 or whatever, but then they kind of died off, and I'm not sure why, because they're one of the more striking spiders that I've ever seen. I mean, they are kind of a pet hole. They're definitely fossorial. They're kind of they just dig and stay down in their substrate until food arrives. But being that they're from Sumatra, it doesn't surprise me. It's right over there by Malaysia, so it's all that Asian fossorial attitude that they have.
Yeah, definitely. I know they kind of reminded me of like a more colorful version of the king baboon.
Mm-hmm. They are too, and they have like an elongated carapace compared to like a king baboon. They have like that shorter carapace, so you could see why they don't fit in with like the Pelanobius, but they're definitely a spider on their own. Definitely crazy. Stout legs are just nuts. Same thing with like the Tongmaiensis. I love the Vietnam Highlands, the Pacupus. I brought those in on an import when they came in, and I brought them in, put them on my website, and sold out of them the first day.
Or the Pachypus?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
I'm blanking on the common name. I'm really trying to get better at learning the common name of the species.
They're
but
I think it's just a stout leg baboon. I think is
okay,
the common
got
name.
it. I know back in the day, again, another one of those species that they were everywhere, similar to like you said. But now it's like I feel like the moment that someone has them, word gets out, they're gone within within a week at most, which is frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, it's like first
Probably
come
not for
first
you.
serve.
Probably not for you. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I had a guy from over on the East Coast somewhere, but he was like, dude, I've been looking for your Pachypus for 5 years now, 6 years, and you finally have them. Like, let me buy one. And then I had another lady buy one while she was on vacation in India, she she messaged me and she's like, I want one, but don't send it until I get back home. And I'm like, these things are gone. Like I can't keep them in stock. It's crazy. The same hasn't been said about the Lyranathus. They're kind of slow to go. I still have some on my website. I do have 5. Since I sold my adult female years ago, I kind of miss her. So I have 5 that I'm raising up. I'm going to see if I can maybe raise up a pair, maybe produce them here. That'd be cool. They are kind of a small species, so they mature around 4.5, 5 inches. They're not a very big spider, but they're stunning and they're very slept on. For those that are into like the Asian species,
Yeah. I'm super curious to hear about the Haplocosmia, just because I saw those on Swift's inverts a couple weeks ago, just cruising around, seeing what he had for sale, and how have those been? Like, what are those like? They look interesting. Himalayan stuff in general kind of piques my interest because it's sort of the opposite of where you expect to see things. Like there's some king cobras that they found up there now that are like the uber montane versions, and they behave completely differently from other populations and things like that. So I mean, how have they been working for you?
The Himalayanas are honestly one of my favorite species. Just the contrast, the black, overall color with the silver legs. They're super slept on. They mature maybe about 4 inches or so. They're kind of small, like an Orphanacus. I actually have, like, here's one here. I mean, they web a ton and they make a burrow. Like this one has a burrow right here.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that didn't make a burrow is this one up here for some reason. He just likes chilling on top, and I'm not sure why. I mean, every spider's different. They all have different personalities, from what I gathered. But they're even at that size, you could see the color coming in. So they have that dark color with the gray bands on the legs. So they start getting their color pretty early, which is nice. You don't have to deal with a brown spider for years until you're like, oh wow, you're finally mature and have your colors. I've had that plenty of times, and you're like, wow, about time,
And then that's why you get a Pamphobeteus.
Yeah, because at least they're pretty slings,
Yeah. Do you work with any of the undescribed species? I know there was a few floating around a couple years back. I'm not sure if they're in the hobby anymore still, or if people work with them.
Yeah, so I've had Quaison Blue, Orphanacus species Quaison Blue. I actually have a couple of the Selenocosminae species Cordillera. My buddy produced the first sack in the U.S. and he shared some with me, which is I'm very grateful for that. They're kind of like the Quaison Blue, but they're a little bit different. The coloring's a little different. They're from from the Philippines and stuff like that, but they're not described. I have like Siripagopus Bach Ma. I have Vietnam Highlands. I have Nendeps that I'm raising up. Another rare one that I just got recently is Ornithoctoninae Hybea. There's not a whole lot known about them. I know there's like one picture on Google of an adult, but that's about all we know about them. There is a guy on YouTube that goes herping over in Thailand, and he made a video where he found Hybea out in the wild, and they were dug like down, and then like an L shape, so they were dug down. And then the way he like dismantled the burrow that the spider made, he was very careful to like chop it instead of like just going in and messing up the burrow and stuff like that. He just like chopped it, and then once he got the spider, he got some footage, and then he like rebuilt. He had like a pole with him that he rebuilt the burrow for the spider, so it was like brand new again.
Huh.
So it was kind of interesting to watch that. but that's really the only known footage of the hybea. But I have 3 of them that I'm raising up. Right now they're about 2 inches. So probably in a couple months I'll be able to sex them and maybe get a pair them up, get them in the hobby more. It'd be kind of exciting to see how they go, because so far they remind me of the Bakma. Just with the patterns on the abdomen and the coloring and stuff, they almost look like a Bakma. Another species I've been working with is cow sock. So the Ornithoctonus cow sock. They come from the same parts of Thailand that they find Araeotibialis and the species Suratani. They all kind of look similar. Cow sock, in my opinion, is more black. Like they have the black abdomen instead of like my Araeotibialis has a gold abdomen. And then the Suratani, I haven't seen an adult in real life, so I'm not sure what they look like exactly, but I know there's 3 of them that come from that same area that kind of look, all similar. And they have like similar attitudes. I love that old school, the old world fossorial attitude.
Have you worked with the other species of Haplocosmia? I think it's black femur.
I haven't, but I do plan on, getting those. Same thing with like the Phlogius. I know there's a new one going around. It's like Phlogius species black. I've been planning on working with those. It's like the whistling spider, like the Australian whistling spider, but they kind of look like a cancrotron. I've also been debating on whether or not to get a Kilobrachys Prachop Kirikon, just because it looks to me like, so there's the discless, there's the Prachop Kirikon, and there's the cancrotron. And to me, they all look like the same species. I had a guy send me a picture of his mature female Prachop Kirikon, and I'm like, it's the same thing I have here. It's a cancrotron. And then you look at like pictures of Kilobrachys discless, and it's the same, same black coloring. I don't know if it's maybe just a locale difference, but I just feel like in the long run they are the same spider. I have yet to compare, Spermatheca from all 3 species, so maybe there's a difference. I told that guy to let me know when his Kirikon female molts to maybe get a picture of the Spermatheca to see if there's a little bit of a difference. But as far as I know, they almost look the same.
The Himalayans, I mean, how's their attitude? Is it pretty stock standard for the old world stuff? Or
they're not too bad.
Yeah.
I had, the adult female I used to have, she wasn't terrible. She's definitely more flighty than bitey, but, obviously don't corner her.
Right.
If you don't push her in a corner, she's fine. That's, old worlds can be pretty mean. I have a couple, like my Bakma female. She's pretty mean. She came hopping out of the burrow at me a couple times. Same thing with like the cow sock female I have, the Araeotibialis female. You don't want to mess around with them guys. But even like my OBT, like I have a mature female OBT here, and she's not terrible. Unless you're like in there messing around, like poking her and stuff. I mean, she'd defend herself, but as far as like just opening, doing maintenance, feeding, cleaning up boluses and stuff like that, I mean, I think people give these animals a bad rep. Same thing goes with like Poecilotheria.
Yeah.
Because they have like stronger venom and stuff. People give them a bad rep, but as long as you're not in there like messing around and stuff, there's really no reason for them to be defensive.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, as long as you give them
Oh, we lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I know that I know that there's a big debate about like at least more at least in some chats I've seen, it's like, oh, we have this tarantula, we really want to see it, especially when it comes to fossorial ones. So we're going to give it less substrate so we can still be out and about more. Well, that kind of leads to a more defensive tarantula. And that kind of perpetuates the whole kind of stereotype that, oh my God, they're these scary beasts that are out to
Yeah.
get us. It's not that bad if you once you set them up properly. Sure, sometimes it could be interesting, especially with I'm sure you know, trying to transfer fossorial species into new enclosures. I know, like I've tried various methods. I know back when like flooding was suggested, that was kind of an interesting one, especially when it's like, oh, I saw someone else do this, so let me try this. I flooded the burrow, the tarantula wouldn't come out. I was like, okay, well now I have a
I'm
wet
glad
burrow.
Then it becomes.
I'm
a
glad
rescue.
I'm not. I'm glad I'm not the only one because I tried that with my Von Worthy once.
Okay.
I tried to get her out of her burrow, and I was flooding her, and her burrow is just full of water, and she's just like down there swimming, just hanging out, and I'm like, this
Yeah.
this ain't gonna work.
I'd
So I
rather.
eventually had to just like scoop off the top, slowly, and then finally get to her to where I can cup her up. I was like, well, I should have did this at the first point, but I heard flooding works, but it doesn't. It's not always 100% effective.
The Von Worthy I had, so I ordered it. I think I got it from someone off ArachNerds or something. And they shipped it via the post office. And the post office, instead of, because at the time I was living at my parents' house, so their mailbox is kind of up the road from their house because they're on dirt roads and stuff. And instead of dropping it off at the porch, they decided to make it fit in the mailbox. And it was a box that, as is, would not fit in the mailbox, but they made sure that it somehow did. And so I got it, and like all the sides were like punched in, and the box was just absolutely destroyed. And I knowing what was inside, I was like, I swear to God, if this spider's not in this cup when I open this box, like this is gonna suck. And
Yeah.
luckily, it was still in the deli. Very unhappy, but given that it's a haplopelma, it's kind of to be expected.
Yeah.
But I just remember, man, that was like I felt like I was working the freaking bomb squad when I was having to open that box. I was like, this is gonna be like the worst Jack in the Box ever. If this thing's loose,
Gonna open it and Von Worthy come flying out.
Yeah, it took work to get that box out of the mailbox. Like it wasn't just something where I could just grab it and pull it out. Like I had to use both hands and like really.
Why would they try to jam in the mailbox?
Because they were too lazy to drive it to the porch. I don't know. The rural postal workers care even less than the regular suburban postal workers.
The best part is, especially when unboxing those more mature tarantulas and everything. I know one popular method is like a 32-ounce deli cup or like a longer deli cup, and you kind of pat it in a way where it's like a kind of like patting around, and then you entice the tarantula inside or kind of push them inside. It's then, okay, which way is the tarantula facing when I'm like when I'm opening this up? Am I going to have to kind of like gently push them out, or they come flying out at me?
Yeah, it's always a surprise. It's always a surprise. Sometimes you get that like I've received like mature males here, and sometimes you get the Jack in the Box, a little mature male packed in a little thing, and you go to open it up and pull that first piece of paper out, and he comes flying out ready to go. And I'm like, hang on a second, like she's.
Well, I mean, on that subject though of sort of those old world species and stuff that kind of do get a bad rap, I feel like it's a good segue into Stromatopelma because that is one that I feel like is infamous for probably being arguably one of the worst species to get bit by, but also I don't think I've ever heard anyone tell me how calm and easy to work with their feather legs were. So what's your experience been with those in particular?
Not bad, honestly. They're bulky, and I think that's where most people get scared. They see a spider bolt, especially like a big 5-6 inch female, take off or whatever, and take flight, basically and bolt. And then people get nervous and they try to catch them up real quick. And I think that's where most of the bites come from. Is because, think about it, like your spider, their eyesight sucks. Let's face it, like they can't see anything except maybe like shadows here and there. So, I mean, you got this feather-legged baboon taking off, trying to defend herself because she has who knows what touching her because she can't really make a judgment. She just takes off, and then you try to catch her up with like a cup or something, and then you have that hovering over your head. I guess I freak out a little bit too. It just takes a little bit of patience. They're definitely not the worst species I've ever dealt with. I think the worst. Trying to think, boltiness. I'm not even sure because I mean it can all be contained. It just takes a little bit of patience. Yeah, the spider's out, but what are you going to do now? It's always like, what's my next step without hurting the animal or hurting myself? Getting bit and being on arachnoboards with the bite report.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely get that. Oh, sorry, go on.
But it's it's one of those things like people. I think keepers need to think about like the next step kind of thing, like I do. Okay, the spider's out, it's out of the enclosure, or it took off, it's running up my wall, or something like that. Like, okay, so calm down. What do I do now? You know what I mean? Take it step by step. Usually, like I had a Harpactira marxi female. I was rehousing her, and she ran up my wall, and instantly I was like, okay, well, I'll just let her like chill because most of the time they're gonna run and they're gonna stop.
Right.
Unless they're like really feeling danger, they're gonna run for a little bit, then they'll stop. And she did. That's what she did too. She just kind of hung out on my wall. I let her go for 5-10 seconds to kind of let her cool down, and then slowly I took one of those like 32-ounce deli cups and I put it over her, and then slid the lid on and got her back in her enclosure. Um, Another thing too is like when you're putting them in an enclosure, I see people all the time that are like, "Let me grab a deli cup for you." They take the cup and they're like this, trying to get the spider off, and that's just freaking them out. If it's that hard, just lay the cup down in the enclosure, let them come out, take the cup out later.
Yeah.
If you're smacking the side of the cup and stuff like that, it's freaking them out. That could be another reason why there's bites and stuff like that. But going back to the S-Cow, I don't think they're as bad. They're fast, and they're number one in the hobby for as far as potency for venom, right there with like Metallica. But you just gotta learn how to kind of contain it. I did take a couple females to the show one time here in Loveland, Colorado, and I rehoused them in just 8x8 Zilla or Zoomed creature enclosures. I put some dirt in there and a piece of cork bark, and I put the female in there, and I sold it as a kit. That way, people aren't messing around because they're not a sit and stay spider. They're kind of like they'll take off, and then with the like if they're on your bed, they take off and they feel you like move the bed or something like that. They'll keep moving. It's kind of like they take off. You have to be careful walking around them, and you catch them up real quick. Just be careful with your fingers, things like that. But I mean, I haven't had really any bad experiences with those.
Yeah, I think you brought some great points when working with this species. Like, this may be overkill, but especially whenever I used to work with arboreal species, I would have, especially when I'm unpacking them in the mail, I would do it in like a larger tub, spray that tub down with some water and everything, make it hard for them to climb in. And then what I'd also do is, uh, especially for the old world species, because I did have roommates at the time, so it's not like not like I wanted to have them escape, but if they did, I would like crumple up some like piece of paper, put a towel down and everything, just so they would run to that first. And I think
Mhm.
that's like similar to what you said. It's like you have to be thinking ahead. Like, okay, what if things happen? It's not if you keep long enough and you get enough tarantulas, it's going to happen either
Yeah.
way. So it's just like thinking ahead of similar to what you said. You want to make
Yeah.
sure you're on top of the game and everything, and especially with the whole knocking, similar to what you said with a 32-ounce Deli Cup, catching up in there. The amount of times on arachno boards over the years I've seen like some people say like, "Oh, my tarantula's not coming out of here," or "Oh, it's not. I've been trying to knock it out," or something. It's
Mhm.
just let it be. If you could fit inside an enclosure, just let it go in the enclosure, or even I would have like a designated deli cup, and I would like solder a hole on like in the top, so I could like fit in a paintbrush to where if I
Mhm.
really needed to get it out, or if it was like oversized and would have fit in the enclosure, I could gently nudge it. But yeah, the last thing I want to do is agitate already a fast moving species
Yeah.
because similar to what you said, it's that that just adds to their like intimidation when
Mhm.
someone first starts working with them.
Yep. And usually like let's say I can't get the spider out of here. I'll take my straw and I'll put it in like this. And if they're facing this way, I'll put it in like this and they'll come out, this way. Um but like you said, you can put like a hole in the bottom or something like that. Um it's similar, but just gotta just be careful where you put your fingers is all.
Yeah, definitely. I am. Yeah, I'm more I'm more wary around those arboreal species just because I'm more of a terrestrial guy, and
Mhm.
arboreal species tend to move a little bit more faster than I'm. So I tend to just give them as much space as possible when rehousing,
Yeah.
or even just working with them in general.
Well, that's like just yesterday, my Cameroon crab spider, the Barrelessa
Yeah.
female that I have, she came out for a wander. When I was feeding her, I took the lid off, and she felt like the air pressure difference, and she came out wandering around, and my wife was freaking out, and I'm like, she's right here. She wasn't going anywhere. She was just kind of like walking around the outside of the enclosure, and I was like, she's not gonna go anywhere. I mean, she's just right here. But I just bumped her back, and she went eventually back in the enclosure, and I put the lid back on and gave her a cricket. Uh, she's most of the time they don't really want to go anywhere. They just feel the pressure difference when you open the lid, and they kind of just come out for a stroll. And that's when you just kind of take your straw or your tongs or something like that, and just kind of guide them back in, and they'll fine. Other than like you said, arboreal species are kind of a handful. I had my Singapore blue female take off on me a couple times, and she ran across my bedroom, and you know, and and they're leggy spiders, so they can get some speed going. You know,
I've definitely had some just like I turn on the light and they just be running around their enclosures just like it's pretty wild to see sometimes
Daytona
if you
yeah.
have
500 in their
a
delis.
I haven't had that yet, but I'm sure they do. But I just I'm so used to it that I don't really pay attention anymore. But um, I just I just kind of do main thing is just watch your fingers no matter what species. Um, I just watched a video earlier today. Dave Fisher put a video up of how to handle like OBTs and uh, feather leg baboons and pokies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I watched that
And
as well. It was really well done.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for Dave Fisher. I think he does a lot of good stuff for the hobby. Um,
That's one
one
of the things
day,
I appreciate about his channel the most is just the fact that because I mean, in the reptile world, you see YouTubers, especially venomous guys, and it's like just extremely overly dramatic and
oh
sensational.
god,
It's like this big thing. And then I go and find Dave's videos, and it's like at a point now where it's like I put those on because it's calming,
yeah,
because he's just so like everything's so mellow.
yep, yep. I do like I
Great.
like him. I like Dark Den too. I like Petco from Dark Den.
His enclosures are
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. His most recent video upset me when his bearded dragon died. Um, I have a bearded dragon myself, and she's like my daughter basically, and I just I got so sad. And I'm like, I looked at her, and I'm like, you better not get any ideas. You know?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that Dave is even with the old
There she is.
world.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
I love
She's
those
big.
big dragons.
Yeah,
Your panty.
she's awesome. She goes everywhere with me. She goes for rides and to the reptile store to get crickets and bugs. Everybody loves her.
she picks them out herself.
Yep. She says, I want this one and that one.
What did you want to get into with the Oreo tibialis egg sac? You started.
Oh yeah, I saw you making some posts like I was kind of like seeing what kind of like species you work with, and you kind of like alluded towards like they finally molted out to like this instar. Are they like? Have you noticed how like are they slower growing, or were they slower growing than other species, or was it just like a different kind of experience raising them up compared to the other Asian species?
So they kind of are a slower growing species for an Asian spider. In my experience, it never took that long to hit second instar, which kind of when they first started hitting second instar, I'm like, oh, finally, because when I breed stuff, I usually separate at first instar. So once they leave the eggs with leg stage and they hit that first instar, I'll go ahead and separate them out, and I'll put them in like 2 ounce deli cups. I'll do like some substrate, and I'll put a cap on there. At that stage, you don't really have to worry about ventilation. It's just when they hit second instar, they become like they need like the air holes. But when you're doing like first instar or eggs with legs, they don't really need that ventilation, which is why people usually keep them in the cup. The only reason why I separate them at first instar is because I've noticed cannibalism before
Mm-hmm.
with first instars, and I try not to have that again. So once I see an egg sac hitting first instar, I separate them out. Um, but yeah, it was a sigh of relief when the Arraeotibialis finally hit second instar. Um, it was kind of weird how long it took. It might have been maybe because it's been getting cooler here at night. I know, like this morning, I woke up and it was only 72 degrees in my bedroom. Usually, it stays around 75 or so. So maybe it's the temperature drop that it's a little bit slower, but it's also a long awaited species for me because they're one of my favorite spiders. And males for these are like super hard to find for some reason. I don't know if they get eaten during the pairing because the male that I used for her, he lived. I mean, she was super nice to him.
Mm-hmm.
After they paired, she kind of went down in her burrow and he kind of did his own thing. So I'm not sure like why males are so hard to find, but they just are. And when you do find a male like that of something that you want to breed, it's like striking gold. You're like, holy cow, can't believe I found a male for this.
Yeah.
And I think with the anticipation and the temperature drops and stuff, it made it seem like maybe it was taking a little bit longer, but in reality, it maybe wasn't. But just when you get antsy about something, it seems to take a little bit longer when you get like excited for something. Especially those I love. That's one of my favorite spiders is the Thai gold fringe. She's just she's striking.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when, um, remember back when on I forgot who posted like their import list and everything, and they had a mature female photo.
Mm.
They're just gorgeous.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
but but kind of circling back a little bit, how do you set up your I guess your incubators, quote unquote? Are you more of the coffee filter kind of guy or the pantyhose kind of guy?
um, give me 1 second. I can actually show you what I use. All my cups are here somewhere. So maybe But anyways, what I'll do is I'll take some solo cups like this, and I'll fill this one with water, and then I'll take another one and cut it in half like that, and I'll take a piece of pantyhose and wrap it around, and make sure to stretch it nice and tight, and then put it in here. And you keep the lid on, tape this up just in case you do slip up on time and they do end up hitting second instar. They're not like, because this is sharp, so usually I'll tape it from the inside. But yeah, cut that one in half, put the lid on there, put that in there, fill it up with water, but to where it's not hitting the pantyhose. And then you dump the egg sac in here. And then when you do that, usually I'll just like kind of spread them around. Because if they sit on top of each other, sometimes you end up with moldy eggs. Just depending on how humid it is inside the cup, you'll end up with like mold growing on the eggs. So usually when I dump them in there, I'll just do a little like stir, make sure they're nice and spread out. It makes it easier to count too, because then you could be like, well, this is how many eggs with legs that I'm starting out with, and and then you can. This year's been kind of rough. I've been hitting some die-offs. I started out with 116 Arreo tibialis, and I have like 41 that are hitting second instar. So
Wow.
for some reason, it's been a rough year. My Bakma, same thing. She dropped a good egg sac, but they were all stuck together. And usually what I could do is I could put the clump in here, and then like a day or two later, I can go in and, separate the eggs. But they were like really stuck together. So I was only able to save like 10 for my Bakma. I mean, it's been quite the year, and I don't know, like I hear from a lot of breeders though, that they've been just having not a very high yielding year this year for breeding. So it's good to know, like I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that with snakes all the time. I mean, we have friends in our group that last year was a really rough year for multiple people for no real apparent reason.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if there's just something larger going on with maybe weather patterns or something that do have some sort of weird distant effect that ends up sort of just throwing a curveball at everything. But it's interesting that spider guys have the same thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking the same thing. Like maybe it got warmer when it should have been cooler, or it got cooler when it should have been warmer compared to other years. Because I do everything the same way. Like once you find a way that works for you, you kind of stick to that. I don't really change my ways in incubating, or I put a video on YouTube the other day of how I pack and ship stuff. I just, if it works, stick with it.
Right.
There's no reason to keep experimenting and losing animals and things like that. So I think it's just been an off year.
Well, so far, what's been the most difficult species for you to successfully reproduce? And are there any species that you've had that you have gotten, or maybe didn't get egg sacs from, but you've been trying to?
Baboons.
Really?
Baboons in general are just not my forte, apparently. I paired up OBT a few years or last year, the year before, and she only ended up having like 20 viable babies. Harpactira poker peas, same thing. I just don't have really any luck with baboons, but I have been reading that because of the weather conditions that they go through, to leave the sacs in with the mom until they start hatching out. And then, obviously you have to play catch up, but at least you won't have the die-offs like you would if you took the egg sac out and, try to incubate it yourself. They're just a really, touch and go family for me. Any kind of Harpactira, Pteronoculus. Even I have I have a female here that's paired up, and it's been like 8 months and still no sign of an egg sac. But she's like sealed herself shut, and she went off food, and I don't even know if I don't know what she's doing. So, but usually, Asian species are pretty straightforward. You keep them damp, feed them up, flood them out. If they start to get dry, flood them out. Main thing is keep the female fed because that's how she'll develop the eggs to lay a good sack for you. A species I want to work more with is probably
All of them.
yeah. I don't really have. I mean, they're all cool. I want to do Langkawi one more time at least. Whenever she molts out a couple times, I'll get her another male. I want to do cowsock for sure. Since I had success with the Rhea tibialis, I want to maybe produce some cowsock later. I don't know what else. I mean, kind of everything. Basically everything I have in my collection. I have a Amazonias Germani female up there. They look like a walking orangutan. They're this orange and fluffy spider, but they're super cool. They're arboreal. They come from South America. They are New World, but I do have a soft spot. Like I have a Topinocanius plumipes right up here, and I've been working with Psalmopaeus a lot. Funny story, I bred Psalmopaeus arminia. It was my first breeding project years ago, and my female ended up having 300 babies.
Ooh.
And she was about to have a third sack. It looked like she was getting real plump, about to ready to drop a third egg sack, and I was like, no. So me and Christina Roberts from Wonderland Exotics did like a trade. We traded a couple things, and I sent her that female. I was like, here, if she comes with an egg sack, it's yours because I'm a sun tigered out here,
Tapped out.
So I kept one sling for myself, and I'm like, I'm gonna raise it. If it's a male, cool. If it's female, cool. Either way, like I'm cool with it. Turns out to be a female, so now I have a 4-inch female sitting over there, and about 2 more molts, she'll be ready to go. So the cycle starts all over again. It's kind of cool. Same thing with Arboricola, the Borneo blacks. I have 2 here. This is one of them. They're pet holes, basically. They're considered arboreal, but I never see them except for like early in the morning or late at night. You'll see them. But those are also a cool species. It was unfortunate what happened to that female. She dropped the egg sac, and 18 days into taking care of the egg sac, she passed away.
Oh damn.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. She was in there, like the egg sac was down here, and she was kind of just laying on top of it like this. And I was like, well, you look kind of weird because your legs like bent in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and I poked her, like expecting some kind of reaction because she had a sack with her, and she was gone. So I was like, well, that's unfortunate. What do I do? So 18 days, obviously, is kind of early to pull a sack.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a special incubator for her. I did a deli cup with damp substrate, and I put the sack in there and pulled it open. And then 2 weeks later, I seen eggs with legs and first instars coming out. So I was like, well, at least the sack was successful, and I set 2 back for myself, and the 2 that I have are both females. So
Go figure.
yeah, it was kind of. I messaged a guy about it the other day, the guy that gave me the male, and I was like, hey, since I have 2 females, would you want a female? And he said sure. So one of them's going to him. Since he lent me the male. So
I just things you definitely need to, if you're aiming to get another pair, I would assume you're probably wanting to hold on to a minimum of like 5.
Yeah.
Better idea.
Yeah, I do like 2 to 5. Like I have Fimbriatus. My Fimbriatus dropped a bunch of babies. So her first sack was like 225, and then 2 months later, Jessica Teets from Marshall Arachnids was like, hey, I have a mature male here. Is your female ready? I'm like, yeah. I mean, she just molted a couple months ago, so yeah, she's ready. She took and she dropped a huge one this time. It was like 321 babies of the Indian violets. And I have 4 set back for myself because I do believe that's the last time I'm going to pair her. After that egg sac, she kind of got like super lethargic. I put her in like a little enclosure to where she wasn't like down in the burrow and was like, keeping an eye on her. But after she molted, like she wasn't really acting like a Kilobrachys like the Fimbriatus would. She was just kind of like tired, and so I was like, I don't know if I'm going to breed her again, so I'm just going to keep 4 of her babies back for me. And then, most of them went to wholesale, and then half of the sack went to Jessica.
Yeah.
I sent her a 9x9 box with 160 babies with a note that, hey, don't send these back to me because these are yours.
No refunds, no returns.
Yeah, I got plenty of them here, so these are all yours. She's like, she opened the box and she's like, 160 Fimbriatus. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, hey, that's your half, right?
How did you send those over? I know some people sometimes, generally, they kind of keep them together when they're shipping babies over. Whereas I've seen, like, I was talking to someone before, and they're like, yeah, from a breeding loan, we got back a big box with just individual mini little condiment containers of each baby in each one.
That's what I use. I use these here. They're 3.5 gram, and then you stuff them with. I'll take like a Sharpie marker and I'll rip a paper towel in half and fold it a couple times, and then you wrap it up and then stuff it in here to where it creates like a bumper for them, so they're not bouncing around in transit. And this is what I use. So I mean, it took me until like 10 o'clock at night to pack all those.
Oh man, I believe it.
Yeah, Fimbriatus, but it's better than putting them all together and then it's cannibalism at that point. I mean, they're gonna eat each other. She's gonna open a box of nightmares, basically.
Yeah, or they're all just scattered the moment she opens them up.
Yeah, like the lid pops off and they're just everywhere.
160.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is how do you determine in terms of what you're gonna let stay with mom versus what you're gonna pull?
So usually I pull every egg sac except for like now when I do baboons. I think I'm just gonna let them hatch out with mom to see if it makes a difference in my yields. Because I don't have any luck with baboons, so I'm gonna try that. I mean, might as well. But usually I pull every egg sac 25, 30 days. I usually give mom with the egg sac. At the 30-day mark, I go in there and I'll hold her back with like a straw, and then I'll pull the sack, and then I'll trade her. Like I'll give her a couple crickets or a roach or whatever she wants. At that point you just put it in the incubator, and you can usually feel when an egg sac's good because it'll have some weight to it.
Right.
I've pulled like dud sacks before and they're kind of light. They're not very good. And then you open them and they're just all like dead eggs or whatever and not very good. But usually if they're a nice like plump heavy sack, I mean that usually means like a good yield.
I've definitely heard that, especially with the hammock building species, that generally some people just leave them in because it could be. I forgot the reasoning. They were saying it's harder to incubate, just like I guess a hammock species. So so that would be interesting to see your results, like just leaving them in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So I have OBT here, female that I'll be breeding again, and Harpactira poker peas, I'll try it again. Same thing with if I ever find a male for that Chrysogaster, I'm hoping to find a male eventually for her.
Yeah, fingers crossed. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites. As we speak, my wolf spider, my Hogna carolinensis, she's on another egg sac. This will be, I think, probably her third one, because her first one that she laid for me was only like 90 babies, but I heard their very first one is like hundreds. They usually have a pretty big like first sack. So being that she's wild caught, maybe this is her first sack. It's only, maybe 20, 25 babies, but they people love them. People love wolf spiders. I love wolf spiders. Everybody loves the.
Freaking billion of them here, dude. I could walk out in my driveway right now and probably find 20 of the things.
Dude, especially the Carolinensis. Just because they're big. Like my female, she's like 3.5 inches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just a huge wolf spider, and just food aggressive. Like she's nuts over food. You drop a cricket in there, she'll do like a backflip. They're super cool.
Yeah, their food drive is like crazy. Like for like
Mhm.
and like from what I've seen, I've never kept any, but a friend of mine kept a couple Australian species, or the ones that came into the hobby, and they'll do like backflips to go at
Yeah,
to just like tackle.
yeah.
It's like watching a linebacker tackle someone. It's pretty wild.
Another species. I know you asked me a question earlier about like what species I'm going to be working on. Another species I'll be working on that just came to mind is the Cerberus Egypt,
Oh, nice.
the Egyptian white huntsmans. I have 3 of them here. I think I have one for sure female, and then I have one. I don't know what's wrong with her. I don't know. She eats and drinks fine, but she's like dropping legs and stuff. I don't know. Maybe she's at like the end of her life or something. And then I have one up here on the shelf that I do believe is a male. So maybe eventually he'll mature out, and my for sure like healthy female will be ready, and I'll be able to have Egyptian white huntsmans in captivity, which would be, I mean, that's huge. I had 2 sacks from Heteropoda Black Lightning. I was one of the 2 or 3 people here in the U.S. that had those. They're not around a lot, but she ate the first sack, and then she had the second sack, and then dropped it on the ground. It got moldy, and then she died. So I'm not really sure what happened there, other than maybe something internal.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Black Lightning. That's the first time I've heard of them, and they're gorgeous.
They're very cool. If you go on my Instagram, I actually did a photo shoot with her. I do photography as well, so you'll see my photos everywhere. Like I know Fear Not uses my picture of my Fimbriatus for their website, and then I think Tyler Kirk uses the Harpexia pulchripes female for his website. I am going to be eventually offering posters and things like that, but I'm trying to find a company that doesn't like crop my pictures. I want people to have the whole picture. I don't want them to have just a part of the picture. I take my pictures like that for a reason, so you can have like a whole scene. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it was a while ago, but if you scroll down. This is how I am when I go to shows and I want to show people a picture or something. I think that's the Murrayensis. Yeah, that's the Murrayensis. It was before then. Like it wasn't a long time ago, but it was a little bit ago. That's also a very cool spider, the Bromeliad wandering spider, Cupienus soleil. Another species I want to work with in the future.
That was my first true spider that I got.
They're very cool.
Was not expecting. I thought just because I worked with arboreal tarantulas, I'm like, I know what fast is. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, their speeds are. I mean, the speed's just insane. Should be coming up. There she is, right there. So see where the Diamondback, the Euphonopelma Diamondback. Hang on, scroll up a little bit. Right, all the way to the right. There, right there. And that's that black lightning female that I had.
How big are they, would you say?
She was only maybe 3 inches. Not very big for
Yeah, pretty
a
small for a
huntsman.
heteropoda.
Yeah, but I think maybe I don't know. Most of those are like wild caught, so I don't know if maybe she had some kind of internal issues going on. Um, I set her up tall and humid like they should be, and gave her ventilation and stuff. That way, she's not suffocating. Um, I'm just not really sure what the disconnect was. I was super excited to see her with an egg sac, and then I was super bummed to see her when she passed.
I think it's always a hit or miss, especially with the imported spiders, especially more so with like the true spiders, because it's kind of hard to tell
Yeah,
at what like at what point in
that's
life
my
you get them.
that's my moderatum female. She's looking pretty gravid nowadays. She's got a big old bum on her, so I'm hoping to have a sack from them pretty soon.
It'd be great to
Aphonopelmas
see.
are pretty weird when it comes to breeding.
It'd be great to see more of those captive bred.
Oh yeah, that's one of my big goals too, is to get like rose hairs and a faunopelma and maybe Brazilian black at some point. Maybe I'll try pulchra, but just stuff that you see wild call all the time. Same thing with like Von Worthy. Um, you see a lot of Von Worthy wild caught. My female produced for me once already. She had like 140-ish babies, and everybody ate them up, dude. Like it was a fighting contest for these captive bred Von Worthies. Because you don't see them. You can't raise them from a sling because a lot of times it's like wild caught subadults or adults that are
Yeah.
coming in.
How do
So
the true spiders, keeping tarantulas and stuff? Like, what are the big differences in keeping true spiders in comparison to tarantulas, and why should people look into true spiders more? Outside of
true
tarantulas.
spiders are cool because no matter what, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, you're good.
True spiders are cool because no matter what species, you don't have to deal with the urticating hairs. I know for me, a big downfall is the urticating hairs. I used to have a big Theraphosa female, Sturmy, and the hairs from her just kind of made my wife. She had like blisters and stuff, so I had to sell her. Unfortunately, it's just so that's one thing about true spiders that's cool. The speed is something, as you said, uh, the speed is something that you have to get used to because wandering spiders, crab spiders, huntsmans, like they're insane fast. Even the wolf spiders, these carolinensis, I have a few slings and they're little lightning bolts. If you're not like watching them, they'll take off on you. Um, and they'll be gone. You have just a wolf spider just hanging out in your house. Not that it's a bad thing. Maybe it'll get rid of some of these stupid bugs that are around here. But I feel like there's the best of both worlds. I started with true spiders with what did I start with? What was my first true spider? I don't even remember my first true spider. That's embarrassing. Um, but I got it and I was like, well, I need more true spiders. So I started getting into more like the Cameroon crabs, and I got the Hogna carolinensis and the Murrayensis, the huntsman. Um, and then I have a trapdoor spider, Lephistius ornatus. I know a guy with a couple males, so I'm kind of keeping him in my back pocket when it comes time to breed her, because I'd like to produce those. They're very cool spiders. I also have. Actually, I think that's it right now for what I have for true spiders. But that's it kind of goes hand in hand with tarantulas. They can climb glass, except for the wolf spiders, they don't. But like any kind of the huntsman or crab spiders or something like that, they do climb glass. You got to keep that in mind when you're, interacting with them in any way. Just like tarantulas, they can. Their fangs are different. Instead of biting down, they bite inwards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool to watch them. Like usually they'll sit up on the side of the glass and they'll kind of sit there and preen for a while, and it's kind of cool to watch the differences between that and like tarantula preening, which is awfully slow compared to true spiders. True spiders get cleaned up real quick. Uh, they don't waste any time, but like tarantulas will sit there for hours and just clean each leg and take their time, and but true spiders just like and then done. They're just super fast about everything. I think they live in fast forward basically.
Yeah, I mean, for me, tarantulas were like a stepping stone into true spiders.
Mhm.
And I guess the one thing is with tarantulas, I've always found it a bit easier because they only move forward and backwards for the most part. So it's easy to tell, like, block their thing. With true spiders, that's all out the window.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
wherever they want to go, they're gonna go.
There's a
So
whole
that's why
nother
I
yep,
thought it was kind
dimension
of
added
like,
to it.
yeah, and
yep,
that's why I think it's kind of impressive because I used to be into photography too, like macro photography. With tarantulas, I never saw an issue with that. I tried with one of my heteropoda. That was the last time I ever took one out for a photo, just
yeah,
because again, I mean, like in my apartment, it was drafty at times, so similar to what you said before. They'd feel that kind of like the wind coming by or that pressure difference, and then they're off.
yeah, yeah. It's not easy to get them to pose for a picture. People ask me all the time, like, how do you get them to pose? How do you get them to stay still? And sometimes I use my bathroom for like a little like photo area. That way, in case they do take off, at least they're in that area. There's not really a whole lot of spots they can go in my bathroom. So
Yeah.
even if I did get a runner, I mean, it's there somewhere. There's not like any kind of cracks or crevices or anything. If I did it in my bedroom, I'd be more cautious because there's more places they can go behind shelves or, even behind like the curtains or picture frames, and and before it, like they're gone, you can't find them anywhere. But being that they're in the bathroom, at least it's in a environment where it's smaller. If they do a runner, at least they're right there. Um, my wife actually built so. Here's my secret behind my photos. My wife actually built like a box. She went to Michael's and bought foam boards, you know, good size like black foam boards. Glued them together, taped them together, made me like a box to where it's like shaped, kind of like this, but it's like open on top and open on the front. So like this whole area is open. And then what I do is I'll take like a black pillowcase and lay it down, to create that black background. And then I'll take like cork bark or plants or whatever that I want to. Skulls. I've been using skulls a lot lately, just because it looks cool and there's a lot of contrast there. You'll see that in like the rose hair pictures that I did or the Kenkuchan pictures that I did. And I'll just lay them out, and then I'll use this light. Like I have this LED light, and I'll just put it above them. It's like a clamp light, and you just clamp it to something. You put it above them, and then you can adjust it up or down. You can adjust the brightness of it. So, I mean, it's a little bit of a process getting the right lighting and the right angles. For the rose hair, because of the way rose hairs are, you can't really see that pink sheen unless she's at an angle. So with my left hand, I was holding that skull at an angle, and then with my right hand, I was kind of taking that picture, and I was kind of in there juggling, and but I got some really nice shots, and she's actually featured on the 2025 calendar. I do calendars as well, and people love them because it's different than like cat or dog calendar or like
Yeah.
something your grandma gave you. You have a cool like spider calendar. It's kind of cool, especially if you have like a dedicated spider room. Uh, what better fitting calendar
Right.
than that spider calendar? Um, so that's basically the rundown of how I take my photos, and it just takes patience. Like sometimes I'm in there for an hour and a half. It drives my wife insane. Luckily, we have two bathrooms. If she has to go to the bathroom, whatever, she can use the other one. But it just drives her nuts because I'm in there for so long. And when I'm like, wait, like the perfect shot's definitely worth waiting for, especially when it comes to photography. Um, I try to do like a little bit of like close up photos to try to capture like the definition of the animal, just because they're gorgeous animals. I mean, they're walking art basically, no matter what species. You have like Brazilian blacks, which have like that solid black sheen to them. I mean, the body of them is super. They're just a big spider. They're just a bulky spider, and there's never been one time where somebody showed me a Brazilian black and I got bored. Like
Right.
I think they're gorgeous. Um, Same thing with like Pamphibedius or Phormictopus or something like that. Just a big bulky spider like that is just gorgeous. I know like pokies, like the ornamentals and the earth tigers and stuff like that with the stripes and the patterns. It's really cool to get that perspective on, like, okay, you see in your enclosure, but to actually get a picture of it to where you can study it and look at it, in definition is just it's priceless, really.
Yeah, I mean, especially with a lot of the ornamentals and stuff too, because there's so many nuanced colors that you just don't see unless the lighting is just right. Like there's a lot of the purples and stuff that don't pop until you get the right angle and the right lighting and sort of the balance and stuff. Because that's with snakes in particular, especially like getting. I'm at a point now where it's like I don't even want to take pictures of anything, even with my phone, like in my room, because the lighting is just so bad. Like you don't get any of the true colors and like the most accurate representation of color and stuff. But if I take, any of my green tree pythons out, if I take a picture of my room, they don't look that good. But if I take them outside, especially in the morning, just before like the sun is like fully up and it's still like the lighting is still very soft, like, oh my God, dude, the blues and stuff just pop like so much more. And it's almost looks like a different animal compared to indoor pictures. So I definitely
that's like yeah. That's like even like pokies, you got the Regalis, Vitata, under the right light, you could see those purples coming through. I have pictures of my Vitata on my Instagram, and I mean, the purples on her is just, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
The way they come through, but they're just enough to where you can see them, but they're not like overpowering. Same thing with like OBTs. You get a picture of an OBT. My oldest son actually pointed out that there's like a jack-o'-lantern face on the abdomen. Like if you're looking at the spider, you can see the eyes and the smiley face as you're on the base of the abdomen towards the thorax.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of nuance that you just everything's got to be in the right alignment to make it happen.
the one I want to work on is Formingocylus rufus. I took a picture of my female, but for some reason it didn't show up the way I wanted it to.
Those are the reds.
Yeah, like the way they're orange, but they have like the purple setae.
Yeah.
And it didn't show up the way I wanted it to. Like the picture still came out good, but they're not like, I don't know. I feel kind of iffy about them. Maybe I'll try again with like play around with the lighting and stuff. See if I get the purple hairs that come through more.
How about the victory? How are those? Because those I can see being either really easy to get that contrast in the color fade, or difficult.
Victoria are pretty easy because they're the back is red, so you kind of put them at an angle like this. Put the light on. Keep the light focused on the back. Usually, you can see that red on the back legs pop. I feel like those would be. I have a Victoria sling here that not sling, but it's a small juvenile that I'm raising up. They start actually getting their colors pretty early too. This one's only like 1.25 inches, and it's already got its colors.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. They start getting their colors early.
Looks like a fun species too.
Yeah. I love all the Samapeas.
I know that that Star Wars name, Darth Maul, that they got really pushed him into popularity too. I honestly, the funny thing was, I've never seen Star Wars, so the Star Wars name kind of turned me off on them a little bit because I'm like, I don't. But
I mean,
and after I got them, I'm just
I'm
like,
not
all right,
even.
these are kind of cool.
I'm not even that big of like a Star Wars guy, but I'm disappointed that you haven't.
I mean, I've seen all the important parts on YouTube, like
No.
you know.
I've watched a little bit of it. It's just not my thing. Same thing with like Harry Potter. Harry Potter is kind of weird. I don't really get into the Harry Potter much. I could definitely see like the fan base for it. You know, I could definitely see why people are fans of it, but it's just not my thing.
I've actually talked to some people that Harry Potter got them into spiders mainly because of Aragog, I think.
Yeah.
His name was, or yeah, like its name was, and yeah, they're like, yeah, we saw that, and it kind of reminded us of a tarantula, and I'm just like, hey, whatever gets you into the hobby,
I
man.
think they modeled it after a giant wolf spider because that's exactly
what
the movies.
Well, in Spain, the kind of interesting fact, the tarantula name is actually a species of wolf spider.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's a Lycosa.
Yeah,
Lycosa tarantula.
it's actually, I think it's endangered, unfortunately, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah. There's also another species I've been wanting to get to. It's from Australia. I forgot the exact name of it, but they're the black and yellow wolf spiders from Australia.
Is it bicolor?
I think so. That would make sense. I mean, bicolor, yeah.
I've seen those. Those are Australia has like, I can admire wolf spiders from the United States, but there's something about Australian species. They're just on a different level. Well, then again, I feel like that's most
Everything's
Australian
just so
species.
more extreme with all.
I know.
Everything's out to kill you in Australia. I just watched a video today. This guy was skydiving, and he went to put his parachute out and land. And when he landed, he had kangaroos come up and kick him. Like as soon as he hit the, didn't even give him a chance. Just kind of just came up and kicked him as soon as he got out of the sky. Like, gee, thanks.
I've seen videos of people fighting them, man, and we keep having this running joke in our friend group that one day we're gonna set up a boxing match at Daytona or something where I'm actually going to get to fight one because I want to fight one. I don't know why. I want to do
have that experience.
But Scott Iper, who's our buddy in Australia, he's like, dude, you're not winning against one of those things. He's like, it kicks you, you're done. Like, I was like, bullshit. I can do it.
Yeah,
I can win.
I don't know. My wife's been to Australia, and she said they're pretty strong.
They had the ones at the zoo that you could like walk through and pet. None of them wanted to fight me.
Yeah,
like, come on, man.
He just kind of like walked up to. Yeah.
Well, they kicked me out. I walked up to it and I punched one, thinking maybe it would jump up and fight me, and it didn't. I wasn't allowed to come back.
Have you ever seen that video of the one where it has this dude's dog and he just runs up to it?
Like a headlock?
It's like the animal was too stunned to speak.
That's the video, man. They were all like, I want to do that. Like, oh no, it just like took the hit and just sat there and stared at him too. Like, it was like, what the fuck, dude?
Right.
If you ever want like a pregame match, Hawaii, when I was working there, when I was doing field work, they were telling me that if you're doing field work in this area, there's just a random group of loose wallabies up in the mountains. Nobody asks any questions; they're just there.
In Honolulu?
No, it's on the other side of the mountain, but it's just, I mean, it's on the other side of the island, but it's like the government knows they're there and they don't want to get rid of them. Like if they wander into like the suburban neighborhood, the government will like sedate them and release them back into the mountains. And it's just like, all right, I don't quite understand, but yeah, I mean, if you want to get a little like see how feisty some of the kangaroo family members are. You could like take 3 of them on at once up there. Nice little vacation.
Worth a shot. If that gives me a shot at the title, like that's what I got to do. Not my first choice, but we'll go for it.
Just some wallabies from Honolulu.
It's so weird that Hawaii though is so strict about people having anything not native, but they've got on Honolulu, because I lived on Honolulu for about 2 years as a kid. Like they have Dendrobates auratus established in the mountains there. They have at least one species of Phelsuma established there. They've got Jackson's chameleons. Like a bunch of stuff that isn't supposed to be there that has just decided to set up shop, and everyone's just like, oh, okay. But like you have a king snake, like, they're gonna come and freaking swat your door down.
Yeah, when I was over there, someone got busted, I think, for having just like like every day. I think he had a couple corn snakes and king snakes and stuff, and he got busted.
They take that stuff super seriously.
Yeah.
Wild.
Hang on 1 second. I lost my audio for some reason. Guess.
All good?
No, I don't know what happened. It's weird. Try it again.
But it's back now?
No.
Checking. I want to punch a kangaroo. Checking.
Like I could hear you, but barely. I don't know.
It doesn't count as animal abuse if it started the fight, right?
That's self-defense at that point.
Like exactly. Like I'm not saying I want to go and just randomly punch a kangaroo that was minding its own business. I'm just saying if one came up to me randomly when I was out in the wilderness of Australia and just tried to start something with me, like I'm gonna defend myself the same way I would if it were like a person trying to rob me.
I mean, yeah, because I mean you'd have to. I mean, it's do or die, you know.
Exactly. I'm not gonna get rolled by a group of kangaroos out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not gonna go down without a fight. I'll fight them all off, even if I got to use a stick. We'll figure it out. How many of those Centraloides bicolor do you have?
I have 2. I raised them up from scorpioning, so they were, maybe this big when I got them, and they're hitting about 3.5 inches now. Scorpions grow pretty quick.
Those and the Margaritatus are at the top of the list as far as scorpions go.
I had a pair of Margaritatus, and then I sold them. I don't know why, but I did. But the guy that I sold them to actually put them together, and they paired, so we might see some Margaritatus babies pretty soon.
You guys need to hit up Jeff Acors. That's one of the people I used to get like all my scorpions from. He has a magic touch when it comes to breeding them a lot. Nigger Manis. I think he mainly worked with more of the Central American species.
Mm-hmm.
But they're gorgeous. I'm surprised they're not more popular. I mean, I get it. Like the arid species are great. Don't question me. Don't get me wrong. But some of the tropical species are stunning.
Yeah. And honestly, I keep the Nigromanus. I keep it I'll dampen it down, and then I'll let it dry out completely before I dampen it down again. I don't really keep those guys too humid. I noticed they come from a different area where it doesn't get super humid, kind of like the bicolors. They need the humidity. But the Nigromanus, they like it, kind of dry. Not like Sculpturatus dry. Like I keep my Sculpturatus just dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sculpturatus was the one scorpion I was able to breed, so that was pretty
nice.
Cool.
That is cool.
Nobody was as excited as I was.
I think it's pretty cool. I'd be excited for you. I'm excited for you right now.
I had a communal group room, and I think I had 3 females each with a brood at one point like all at the
Yep.
same time. Like it was crazy, man. Those things were producing machines.
I
Yeah.
definitely feel more comfortable with my with Scorpion communals than I do Tarantula communals.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, because they don't. I mean, like Balfouri's, I watched people rehouse Balfouri's, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah, I think.
I feel like it's just more work than it should be.
Yeah,
You know?
I may get some shit for this, but in general, if it hasn't been observed in the wild that they live communally, even if they do display such behaviors in captivity, I'm not necessarily a firm believer of that. I do know the one species that has more of a like connection to being communal is Pamphobedia species Araña pollito, the chicken spider.
Mm.
I saw when I was down in Peru, I was fortunate enough to see like burrows quite close together and everything with varying age groups. But even then, I wasn't there long enough to even watch to see their behavior or anything. But I do know back in the day, I want to say way back in the day. I'm not sure if you heard of a YouTuber named John 3800. He was
Oh,
like he was
damn.
like way back
Yeah.
when.
Yep.
He was able to get one, and this was when they were only in Canada at the time. They weren't in the United States, so there was only like a few of them even in Canada. Um, I'm glad they're in the hobby now, but at the price they are, I'd still be kind of nervous to keep because what are they like 300 or $375 for a
Yeah.
sling just to
Yeah.
keep them communally. Then uh, I'd be kind of nervous.
Yeah. That's expensive experiment.
Yeah, they are definitely interesting though. They do, from what I've been told by friends who have raised them up, they do have an extra instar compared to the other Pamphobedia species. So it'll be cool to see one day if they become more readily available and have just some giant like tropical communal setup.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, I see people with like Poecilotheria communals that they try out and stuff. Like, I'm not 100% on board with those. I mean, if you're willing to put the money in and try it, I mean, go for it. But I wouldn't recommend it.
I mean,
I
I have no
mean,
doubt
Rehousing
that
too.
it's something that they do naturally, but I also am thoroughly convinced that if they are, it's temporary. Like they're not doing it
mhm.
long term. Like they hit a certain size and a certain age, and then they're all they're dispersing from that. They're not all in a 18 by 18 by 12 or 24 exo for
Mhm.
an indefinite period of time together. Like they have the room to get away from one another. And
We'll see that, and you have to put in perspective too that all spiders are different. Like the same species, but one spider could be different than the other one. Just because you see them being on the wild together doesn't mean that yours living in captivity are going to be together communally and have success. Um, you know, I've noticed over all the years of keeping, like some species I get a couple of. I have 3 Formicocylus penulhulatorums that I'm raising up, the burial bat eaters, and all 3 of them are different from each other. The one hides out, the other one sits out, and the other one he does a little bit of both. Um, and it's just you have to realize that spiders differ from each other, even though they're the same species. Um, they all have different attitudes, different agendas, stuff like that. I even put in maybe they have different personalities. I mean, I know that there's stuff, oh, spiders don't have brains and stuff, but they have to be somewhat aware, you know,
yeah,
um, not 100%, but they have to be okay. Well, I have a very limited environment. This is what I have for right now. I'm going to set it up the way this is what I have. Because out in the wild, even the females are kind of they wander around until they find the perfect area to where they make a home and stuff like that. That's why I always preach on when people buy spiders from me. I'm always make sure you do your research, especially because like I carry a lot of rare Asian species, and for the most part, you could set them up with like deep substrate, make sure it's damp on the bottom. I mean, it's not really a whole lot of like science behind it, but at the same time, I'm like, if you were to set up like a realistic enclosure, look where they're from. Go like if you were to buy a Larinathus, go on Google, type in Sumatra, and just look at the landscape and how everything's set up, and just kind of set it up the way they would live out there, and just watch their natural behaviors, because that's all they have. I mean,
Yeah.
they have a very limited space. They don't really have anywhere to wander. So,
I'll take it a step further and say, like, look up the species on INAT,
mhm.
and you don't even have to necessarily, like, you're not looking at the individuals observed, like the actual spiders themselves, but like the surroundings, like what are people finding them on? Are they finding them dirt? Is there some grass? Like, what is the landscape looking like? Even if it's a very small, tight frame of the animal, like you can get some information from that. Like, is it leaf litter? Is it more rocky soil? Like, I know myself and Bill and some of the other guys that here on the network, like we're very much about using INAT for that purpose of getting a better idea of the natural history of species that you're keeping, and giving you a better idea of what they're actually sort of biologically geared towards, even in captivity. Like, that HMAX are going to be arboreal-ish. Like, as when they're young, they're gonna burrow a good bit, and then they're gonna kind of do the pokey thing where it's like a half burrow, half arboreal sort of deal. So you're not going to keep it the same way you would keep Brachypelma. It's like you can go and look at these things and learn a lot, even if it's just from small background information from INAT and the pictures and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And to go off of that, there was like a photo of Omothymus species like Cowie. Someone was on the island, and I believe they saw a bunch of juveniles, if I remember correctly, and that was in their stage where they would kind of create kind of like where they were in that transition. They would be in that stage where they're like still burrowing in captivity, but they were living in like the V's of the tree where all the leaf litter and stuff kind of moved down. So that kind of explains why in captivity we see them more in the substrate more than anything else.
Yeah. Right now, my female is just in a 8x8x12. I am planning to get her a bigger enclosure though. But this is what I have her in.
Nice, that's cool.
She has a piece of cork bark, and she dug it all up back there. But eventually, I'm gonna get her something taller. I feel like she needs a little more height. I've been eyeballing these Exoterra made them, and they're 12x12 by 24, I do believe. So instead of the 18, because the bottom's like this deep, so you can put like
it's like a paludarium.
Yeah. And I've been eyeballing those for one for my Indian or my Ghost Ornamental, and then my Langkawi, and then my Singapore Blue. I think those three would really benefit from having that kind of setup.
It would be super interesting to see, especially like the Vittata. If you're giving them such a larger range in terms of like substrate to height, and arboreal nature of it, to see how much of that they would use between the two, and like how they would, if you gave them that much space, like how much of it would they actually take advantage of and actually web up and use.
Right.
That'd be really cool to see.
And I know like Singapore Blues, they get 9 inches or so as adults. They're a big spider. They would definitely use all of that enclosure. Especially if I put a cork tube, maybe buried it a little bit, put a plant, water dish, things like that. They would use every inch of that enclosure.
And with a bigger enclosure too, like that, I would assume that having live plants in there would be considerably easier to manage and maintain, because they wouldn't be in such close proximity to it all the time to destroy it.
Maybe
space between one another.
Maybe that'll be my my trial when I do a bigger enclosure like that. I think it'd be kind of cool to get them in that bigger box though.
Yeah. Closing questions. What have you learned while being a seller? And then how popular have the mystery boxes been for you? And what species would you like to see more of in the hobby?
So the first question, what I learned from being a seller, you kind of learn that there's a lot of questions. People ask a lot of questions, but I always tell them I'm an open book, and if I don't have the answer, I'll find it. I'll get back to you. Um, but there's a lot of, especially at expos and stuff, I get a lot of, people will pick up the cups and they'll be like, "Is there really something in here?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, there's spiders in there." I'm not a blockbuster. I don't keep the spiders in a bucket here, and it's like putting the tape in the case when
It's a $30 cup of dirt.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, yeah, there's stuff in there, and you learn where the hobby is actually. Um, we went up to South Dakota. There wasn't really any invert people up there. I advertised everywhere that I was going to be in South Dakota, and there wasn't like anybody. We went up to Idaho. Idaho gets kind of better. There's definitely invert people up there. Definitely spider people. Montana, hit or miss. The biggest area that we've been to so far was like Denver, here in Colorado, and then there's a big following. There's a big tarantula following in Arizona as well. Um, I noticed Arizona, Utah, Colorado. I haven't been down to Texas yet. I heard it's kind of saturated down there. So that's one thing you learn from being a seller, kind of where to go with your product. Um, it's kind of like that for every business, though. Like my wife used to make cakes, and she kind of learned where to like advertise and where to stay as far as her business. But it's just a learning experience. Um, Another thing I learned is just just how different people are in the tarantula hobby. There's different kind of keepers. There's ones that are they like new worlds, but they don't like old worlds. They have the experience and everything, but they just prefer not to have them. There's the opposite where they have old worlds like I do, and they don't do a whole lot of new worlds. Um, and then there's like the true spider people. They like the wandering spiders and stuff. Like when I bring in Macroctinus kingsley, the blue femur wandering spider, those sell really well. I have Oleos giganteus, which are the huntsmen down in Arizona. Those have been selling pretty well, because people they're trying to get used to true spiders, more than just having tarantulas. They're like, try something different. I always offer, even scorpions are kind of a cool start. So I mean, those are really the things that you learn from being a buyer. Um, and then what was the second question? I want to go in order. So
How have the mystery boxes done for you?
mystery boxes have been great. I offer anywhere from like 100 to 500. I tell people all the time, sometimes you'll get some stuff in that mystery box that might not even be on the website. So there's not really any way of telling like what exactly you'll get. So it's just kind of, and people also like that they're like um, tailored kind of to what their needs are. So if somebody gets a mystery box, like I had a guy last week, got a mystery box, but he was a new keeper. So he's like, "Hey, I'm a new keeper, but I'm going to get a mystery box." So I sent him a bunch of like species that would be good for new keepers. I sent him a Thrixopelma ockerti, Theraphosidae, Roton. I sent him a Nandu, Vitalis chromatus. Just set him up with like, he wanted a scorpion, so I got him an Asian 4 scorpion, which is a great beginner scorpion. So I set him up with like a beginner box because he was new to the hobby. He wanted to get his feet wet a little bit. Not a problem. And then there's like experienced keepers that are like, hey, I'm gonna get a mystery box, but I have like this and this, and I'm like, oh, cool. So I could send you some some really really cool stuff, and they get their mystery box and they're like, dude, this is so cool, like, and they've been doing pretty good. Everybody likes them. I'm thinking about doing them for the shows. So coming up for the expos, I'm thinking about maybe getting like paper bags and doing like $100 mystery box or $200 mystery box, and I always do like a little bit extra. I always do like a 1 point, like a 1.25 times whatever the value is. Just to give you a little bit extra on your money, because we all know the economy sucks nowadays. So you try to stretch your money as thin as you can. So I try to help people out with that too. So yeah, they've been doing very good though. Mystery boxes.
Chris Painchab, who's one of the network hosts too. He does one of the reptile expos. He's in Texas. He's in Corpus.
So he probably does shows with Ty Randall.
That name sounds familiar. Possibly
Tie-Dye Exotics.
But he's seen, either he did or he saw some people doing it with crested geckos and corns, where it was like, a grab bag that was, $50 or or whatever. And he's like, dude, those things were flying off tables like crazy. Like there's just something about like not necessarily like the gambling aspect of it, but it's just more exciting when you
it's like the thrill of getting something unknown.
Yeah. And if you walk up to a table and you see like all this cool stuff on the table, you gotta think like, oh, if there's cool stuff on this table, there's probably some really cool stuff in that bag. It catches people's attention, because if you walk up to a table and you're like, it's all basic, like, striped knees and curly hairs and stuff, and if I get this mystery box, it's probably going to be the same thing. But if they walk up and they see like cool stuff on the table that they never even heard of, there's probably some really cool stuff in that bag.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I think it's a great idea.
They're fun. I think Nisor did one with Ken the Bug Guy, and I know I did one with Ken the Bug Guy years ago, and man, it was like super exciting. You had no idea what you were going to get. It's fun. I don't know. They're excited.
Yeah. I mean, it's a surprise. Like when you open that bag, you're like, well, wow, look at that. It's so super cool. And especially if it's like you pay $50 for it and it's $75 worth of stuff, it's again, going back to like, okay, that's kind of cool. I got more than what I expected. And it keeps everybody happy.
Yeah. And the third question was, what species do you want to see more of in the hobby? And I'll tack onto that, like, what do you feel like is currently the most underrated species in the hobby?
So one species I want to see more of is the Harpactira chrysogaster. I wish people kept those more. That way they're not so hard to breed when it comes time to keep them in the hobby. Another species would probably be honestly, one of my favorite spiders is my Cereopagophus doriae.
Gorgeous.
I definitely. She dropped me a phantom sac the other day. I was so mad because I know where like 3 mature males are right now, and now it's too late. Like I have to wait. But if I would have known she was going to drop a sac, I would have snagged up one of those males and got her done real quick. That way, at least it would be a fertile sac. But it is what it is. I'm just hoping that us as breeders, we can keep those in the hobby and work with them more, because they are gorgeous. And as far as being mean, like they're supposed to be one of the meanest tarantulas, but I mean, she'll throw a threat pose and slap and stuff, but I mean, she won't like take off at you or something like that. Like my Bachma, like I said earlier, she came flying out of the burrow a couple of times at me just for offering her food. I mean, she's she's nuts, you
Here
know. And, yeah, and I'm like, well, here's your dinner. Like, I'll close her lid. I'll put her back on the shelf. Like, fine, you keep your secrets, you know.
Don't say thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but there's a lot of species that I wish that people would work more with, especially any of the wild caught species. Anything that's wild caught, from a faunopelma to brachypelma. Well, now not brachypelma anymore because I think the sites kind of stopped that on the Mexican imports.
Yeah.
But like Grammostola, stuff that's just, yeah, it takes a little bit to breed them. But once we figure out like how to get that cycle going, I feel like there shouldn't be any reason for us to be wild catching animals. And it goes for like snakes and reptiles and stuff. Because I still see, just the other day, I seen some sailfin dragons
Oh yeah.
that were wild caught, and I'm like, if us reptile, tarantula, inverts, like the exotic community in itself should be self sufficient in breeding these guys. Bring in a couple pairs for yourself, keep them on the down low, breed them in captivity, get them out there. I mean, it's gonna be a time game, and it's gonna be a little bit time consuming, but in the end, it'll be worth it because we're keeping the animals out
Right.
there, but we're still enjoying them here in captivity.
Not only
Um,
that, just like establishing them, or just like it takes out that kind of question. And I know I'd rather like pay a couple, I'd rather pay more for a captive bred animal, even with tarantulas, because I know when I got my monitor at them, they turned out to be wild caught, and then
mhm.
and then you have to worry about quarantining them. At least I quarantined my tarantulas. You never know what kind of parasites they could be that
Yeah.
they could have. I've definitely seen a lot of images of them carrying some sort of flies or worms of sorts. So I always like to kind of keep them separate
Hmm.
if I know that they're wild caught. That's granted, that's on the seller
Yeah.
to disclose such information. But yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. And I mean, even like, yeah, faunopelmas are usually all wild caught until people start breeding them in captivity. Pink toes, even like avix, they're a lot of them are wild caught. And there's no reason why we can't bring those species in and work with them and get them captive bred and just keep the ones that are out there, and just don't dwindle the population. You know, Pokies. I know Metallica's, and I feel like eventually maybe we can bring like Vitata, Subfusca, Ornata, Fasciata, and Smithy. I mean the five ESA species. I mean, we can maybe bring those to where they're not ESA anymore. If we captive breed them and then we can sell them across state lines, it would help tremendously with the hobby.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they would even walk it back like that, because I would think that sort of once they're ESA'd like that, then the moment they open it back up, then they're gonna be sort of right back to square one in terms of poaching and export and things like that. But
Yeah.
hearing Andrew Smith talk about that in the Pasilatheria documentary, it sounds like India has made an effort to be more strict about people catching those and trying to export them and stuff. So I don't know. It would be nice because, again, like all my favorite pokies, I can't find in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone somewhere that's breeding them. I just don't know who it is. But I would love to have Ornata again. I had a Fasciata, and looking back on it now, realizing that I can't have those anymore, it sucks. But
Yeah.
all the pokies that I really really like, I can't have now unless
Right.
I find someone in South Carolina that has them. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just unfortunate, especially like for the state that you live in. Like, let's say someone in South Dakota randomly happens to be in the tarantulas and wants, Fasciata or Smithy or Subfusca. I mean, the chances of them finding a pokey breeder in South Dakota is just not.
Yeah,
I
slim.
mean, it's slim, because the hobby up there is just not where it is. Here in here in Colorado, I got people in Denver and stuff that work with pokies. I mean, it would be easy for me to find like a Safusca, but for other states, I feel like it would be harder because of like where the hobby is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if the hobby is not in your state, I mean, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
Unless somebody like sends you one and pays for shipping and pays for all that, but yeah, but I mean, unless you have like really good friends,
I know back
shipping's pricey.
I know back when I was just getting out, like a couple of my friends, Christina Roberts being one of them, they were whoever was producing like a ESA list, like Poke, and you had an intention to breed, they would send you a couple. You like, but with the caveat is like you would try to breed them at least just to get them, especially because they had a list of states, who was in what state, who was working with them. I don't know
Right.
what came of that, because that was like 5-6 years ago. I don't know if they're still doing that or if that turned out to be successful or not. I hope it did, and that brought more animals to the different states. But yeah, if we could do things like if that's not going on anymore, if we could like reboot that, I feel like that would be a good way to get them into, or just like have the contact for someone who has those animals that is breeding them. That would
Right.
make that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great idea too. Like, if you make up a waiver saying, okay, well, I'm getting these animals with the intention to breed, and putting them back out there. Um, I mean, that's a great idea, but you run into the trouble of like people taking that the wrong way and being like, oh, that's a sale across state lines and stuff like that. Like it's a really really fine line,
Yeah,
you know,
or just
to
people saying that they will breed them, but they
yeah
they're taking them and stuff. So yeah, I could definitely see how it gets
yeah
murky.
yeah. It's a risk, really, But I feel like in the future, with breeding and stuff like that, with the ESAs, I think it'll get better. I feel like Metallica is not too far away from being on the ESA list, unfortunately.
It surprised me because they would have been like at the top. I would think initially,
Yeah,
on this list, like I would think Metallica would be an obvious first pick to put on that list just because of like how in demand they were and still are. It's
yeah,
just it's wild to me that they're like, okay, these 6 species, 5 species, whatever, Metallica, nope, you're good.
and like some of them look the same. Like you have like Smithy, Regalis, Fasciata. I mean, a lot of those Pokies look the same unless you pay attention to like the banding on the ventral side or something like that. Just little things. Hanuma Hanuma via Samika, is another one. They just look the same. Um, you know, having Vitata, I noticed they look the same, but they're not as pronounced as my Regalis was.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So they're not like they have the same kind of like fracture patterning, but they're not like as black or as yellow as a Regalis.
Yeah.
You hear that, Justin? That means they all look the same, and you could just have one, and then you could branch into other genus and species.
No, I love them all.
Yeah.
I want to get
Justin's gonna.
I had never kept Rufalata.
I would say do it.
I think those are the largest ones in the genus.
Ornata.
Ornata. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Rufalata.
Rufalata's right behind it, but Ornata's the biggest.
Got it.
But I would, dude, if you can get Rufalata, I would say go for it because they're awesome. I had a big old. Yeah, I had a big like she was like a 7-inch female, years ago, and I mean she was. I regret getting rid of her because she was awesome and a sweetheart. Like she acted like a Regalis kind of. As far as like temperament, she wasn't like skittish or bitey or anything. I never got a threat pose. She was just kind of chilling, you know.
'Cause I've always heard that Rufalata were the most sort of high strung of all of them.
I think for me it was a Vitata.
Yeah, my
My
experience with Vitata was the same thing, where they were
yeah,
more nervous than anything else. Like very much more apt to run than like the Regalis were or anything else that I had kept.
yeah. Like this girl here, I mean, she ran up shower curtains and stuff a couple times. Um, Especially during that because I did a photo shoot with her, and she would just be facing my way, and then all of a sudden she would turn around and take off, and and I'm like, just if you just stay still, this would all be over. I mean,
Get this over much faster if you just cooperate.
yeah,
Relax. I just want to take some photos.
yeah. This would be a 5 minute session, and you would be back home and just living your life if just hang out for a second.
Here we are 30 minutes later.
Yep, or an hour or whatever.
Well, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on Facebook. I have the Eight Deadly Sins LLC page. Once we hit 1,000 followers, I'm gonna have a contest. Person that wins the contest will win $100 gift card towards anything in my store. And I'll make it so it doesn't expire. So like if there's not anything right now, you can always wait for it and just keep that coupon for when you're ready. I'm also on Instagram pretty often. Always doing photography. Eight Deadly Sins on Instagram. If you ever want some merch, I have a fourth wall page. I can always, if anybody has any questions, you can always message me. I'll send you the link for the fourth wall page. It has these T-shirts. They're super soft, like cotton ones. They're super nice T-shirts. And then the hats, I have these. They're sold through me because I get them printed. Well, not printed, but embroidered and then sent out. They're super nice hats. They're just the flex fit. And another platform would be I've been pretty active on TikTok lately, and YouTube, and so I've been pretty active on there. Sorry, my wife was distracting me, but yeah, TikTok. I've been putting on I already put Instagram. Put all my breeding videos and stuff on there. I'll put like a snippet on there, and then YouTube. I'll put the whole video up on there. Try to cover all platforms. If you ever want to know what shows I'm at, you could always visit my Eight Deadly Sins Facebook. I have it's like pinned to the top of the page. It's like a little show schedule there. If you ever want to follow me at shows, I plan to do East Coast shows once I figure out how to get my animals to there. I know a lot of people trust FedEx to where they'll overnight their animals to the venue, and then, but my only worry is like, what if I get to the venue and then my animals aren't there, and then I just have I'm just there,
Yeah.
So it's just a way to just something I got to think about before I start doing like shows out of my driving range. I usually keep it. Most people on the East Coast keep it like 2 hours or so, but I can't even do that because Denver is even 4 hours away from me. So I mean, I got to keep it. We do like 10 hours. So if we drive more than 10 hours, it's not going to be worth it with the hotels and the gas and stuff like that.
Right.
I've kind of been staying close range lately. So a lot of Colorado, and then I go up to Idaho. October, the weekend before my birthday, actually, 19th and 20th. My birthday's on the 21st, so hopefully a good show right before my birthday. That'd be awesome.
Hell yeah.
So,
you got anything else there, sir?
Oh, I mean, you're working with some great species, so I wish you luck, especially with pairing them. It'd be great to see you successful and spend more to the hobby. That would be great.
thank you. I try. Like my biggest thing is working with obscure species that uh, aren't very common in the hobby. Things that are a little bit different to people's eyes. Even at the expo tables, people are like, "I never even heard of this species," and they're sitting there reading about it. And next thing you know, they're taking it home because they read that it's super cool species, super cool to keep. You know, um, looks good as adults, and I try to focus more on the obscure species. I also try to my motto is don't be afraid. Basically don't be afraid of what you don't understand. Um, if you look past the it's got 8 legs, or like centipedes, it's got all them legs. If you look past that and actually look into the biology of the animal and look at the environment of where they grow up in and look at like their purpose of the environment and stuff like that, I mean, there's really nothing to be afraid of. They're not going to come chasing after you. Uh, I wish they would. I mean, that'd be cool.
Make them easier.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We went to Arizona. We were gonna look for tarantulas, but it was like 115 degrees outside, so didn't want to do that. But I'm always trying to teach people not to be afraid. Um, that's my main goal, is to help people with their arachnophobia. Me not having arachnophobia, even as a kid, it makes it kind of easier. Um, to help people with their arachnophobia. When I met my wife, she was scared of spiders. She's like, I'm scared, and I'm like, I picked her brain for like an hour. I'm like, is it the legs? Is it the hair? Is it the eyeballs? Because I know they have a lot of eyeballs. That kind of freaks people out. Is it the speed, or what is it? And I've been getting kind of mixed stories that it's like a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, like spiders aren't for everybody, but just appreciate what they are. Appreciate what they have for the environment. I always tell people, like, don't squish them, because then you'll be yelling about like, oh, I have all these moths, or I have all the fruit flies and stuff like bothering me. I mean, that's your fault. You squished what was helping you. So, I mean, you know, um, so I just I try to educate people most of all. It's always a good time seeing people come up to my table and they're like, what's the purpose of keeping spiders? I'm like, a learning experience, basically. Excuse me. You learn about like their biology, and you learn about uh, how many years they've been around, and just where they came from, and what they are today, and the evolution of things, and how they develop stronger venom because they have more predators where they live, or how they have like less potent venom because they don't really have much to run away from. Um, so hares will do the trick, but like old world tarantulas, there's a lot of predators out there, a lot of cats and stuff that'll chase them around, and they need something to protect themselves, and so they have like a stronger venom. They develop that over evolution of over millions of years, and it's just just the general science behind them, I think, is more fascinating than anything.
Agreed.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's like I mentioned in the first episode, getting that first tarantula and sort of very quickly realizing like they're not anything like you sort of have this image in your mind of them being, and like they are way more interesting than you might think they would be.
Yeah, that's why I tell people too, like put the scare tactics behind you.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people like Brave Wilderness. I know he has a video with the spiders crawling over his head, and and not really necessary. I mean, it's not necessary to put that out there. If you ever watch Home Alone, he got a spider on his face. What's another one, like Arachnophobia, the movie? Put all that.
Amphibious climbing out of someone's ear. That poster.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like put all that stuff behind you, because none of that's real. Like it's just all scare tactics. Like there's not one time I've had some people tell me, "Oh, camel spiders will chase after you." I'm like, they're not chasing you; they're chasing your shadow because it's hot outside. They're trying not to cook.
The sun. They're looking for anything they can get.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not they don't care about you. They just want the shadow. It's the same thing with spiders. Like if you ever see them like running towards you, they're not running towards you. They're just trying to get away from the whatever is bothering them.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just I tell people all the time, take all that like scare tactic stuff and just put it behind you. Like don't even focus on it because none of it's real. I've never had one tarantula jump at my face. I mean, I've had a couple like jump out and like chase me out because they got startled, but I never had one like actually land on my face and bite me or whatever they put in movies. Um, I've had this Langkawi female hanging out on my head. I had a cobalt blue female chilling on my head before. None of them gave me real issues. They were just kind of there for the ride, for the wherever they were going.
I kind of let a cobalt blue go wherever it wants to go.
They're honestly not bad. They're another one like if you set them up the right way, give them deep substrate, they're more reluctant to just go back in the hole rather than.
Yeah, that was great. It was rehousing. That was always like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was doing the photo shoot on that cobalt blue, and she got up my arm and then got on top of my head, and I was like, well, what do I do now? So I went and got a deli cup, and as soon as I put that deli cup on my head, she instant like threat pose. And I was like, oh man, I hope she doesn't bite the top of my head. That'd be awful.
yeah, it's a new level of suck.
Yeah, it'd be a headache for sure. But now she was all right. She was just startled. She didn't know where she was, so I get it. New surroundings. I don't know where I am. You know, just just here, and then all of a sudden, like this thing in front of me.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Again, first guest. We're glad you were able to make some time for us.
Absolutely. I don't do anything towards the evening, anyways. I kind of just hang out with the family, feed whatever who needs to be fed, and things like that. Eat dinner. I love dinner, so.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for taking time out. Again,
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Yeah. Well, I'm truly honored. Like, this is crazy. I even told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to be on a podcast. And I started like fangirling for a little bit and like, all right, well, I gotta keep my cool. But it was awesome. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. If you ever need anything, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely.
So I'll be keeping an eye out for that ArachNerds t-shirt. Give me another cool t-shirt to wear.
Hell yeah, brother.
So, well, it was an honor. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
This episode is brought to you by Fulvius Apparel. Check it out. Facebook, Instagram. Use the code THN to check out. Get 15% off your order. That is the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you. Might add some stuff this weekend. I don't know. I've been again. I'm always working on designs and stuff. I'll spend 2 hours working on something and then decide I hate it and never touch it again, and that happens a lot. So we'll see what happens. But
Don't stop until it's perfect, right?
yeah, it never is. It's never done. Flippin' 10 should be ending here soon. That'll be up. And then Kingsnake Chronicles episode 3, I think they're finishing up right now as well. So both of those will be available probably at the same time you're listening to this, if not beforehand. We'll see. Depends on what sort of what order you listen to everything in. But either way, we appreciate it. We will see everybody later.
See you guys.